Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to topic 3. In topic 3, I'm going to be explaining to you guys all the various interfaces, each of the interface on its own. I'm going to be explaining to you just briefly, showing you guys how the interfaces look, and then you guys can obviously see complete details of the interface in the coming topics. But let's first see how these interfaces look. So I'm going to definitely start off from here. Now the first one over here is basically the asset editor. I can simply select the asset editor and you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have the material, light, geometry. We also have the settings over here. We have the render button and the buffer frame. So we have all of these various different settings which we can edit in the asset editor. The next one over here is the render setting. The render setting is basically a button which lets us render, and you can see when I move the SketchUp model, the render does not move, it stays the same way. We'll be getting into the details of the render and how the render actually works in the next session. But renders are basically, as I told in the first topic also, that they are essentially the realistic look of the SketchUp model which you have made. After this, you guys can see we have the next one, which is the render interactive. The render interactive basically is exactly same like the render, except when you move around in the SketchUp model, it really shows you in real time the entire render. And you can see in the SketchUp model there is no sun, but over here we can notice a sun. That means in the render we are going to be seeing shadows, and shadows are going to be definitely affected. So you can see over here when I click on view, I can simply click on shadow to actually see how that shadow is going to look over here. And you can see in our render we are not able to see a shadow, but don't worry about that. We'll be getting into how do you see all of those things in this particular render as well. So I can just stop this and close this over here. Let's bring out the shadow. Now guys, the next thing over here is our lighting. So before that, of course, it's just the buffer frames. They are simply going to tell you the percentage of the render, and also the frame that opens up is called the frame buffer. After this, guys, you have the lighting settings. The lighting settings are basically light placement. So more than settings, these are actually like objects you can place. You can see I can click on the plane light and actually go ahead and place a plane like this. I can click on this light and actually create something like this. So they're actually objects that are being, placed over here. And those are essentially, this is an IES light which you can open up from a source file. Otherwise, you can see I can actually go ahead and place this over here. This is that Omni light. We have the dome. This is of course the mesh clipper. Sorry, this is it's actually the mesh light, but that will only come on an object. So let's say that we have an object something like this, which is definitely in a group. Then only we can select the mesh light, and you can see this gives light all around the object. And of course, then you can select any of these and simply click on intensity, and you can actually see if I hold the left click and move my hand up and down of the mouse, I can actually increase and decrease the intensity of these lights simply like that. So select this, then click on the light, not on the object, okay, on the light, and then holding the left click, drag up and drag down. And that's basically how you can adjust the intensity. Listen, VRay is very simple. It's very, very easy to understand. That's how I've broken it down for you, each and every particular thing. You guys will understand all of these. Now we have over here infinite plane. You can see infinite plane is something like this, which you can set, and eventually you can see this is the infinite plane. It's actually going to help us a lot out in the exterior renders when we do any of those. After that, you've got import and export proxies. If you click on import proxies, you can actually import a VR mesh file, or you can export a VR mesh file if you have created a one. In the next one, we have fur. Now fur is something which you might not really see it. I'll add it again on this, so you can see I can select that. Let me just delete the light off, and when I select this, you can actually see the mesh coming back. I can actually export my proxy as well over here. Now you can see I can actually export that and make that into a VR mesh. Alright, but if I click on the fur over here, you can see fur comes up. You cannot see it here, but definitely in the render you would be able to see it, which is what we'll be doing when we talk about the details of these particular things. And this is basically how each of these interfaces are going to work. So starting from here, which you can actually enter and edit certain things, to like the lights and the geometry, which are more like objects which you place them around. These are how all of these particular settings are going to work, and particular tools or plugins, if you may, are going to really work. So I hope you guys understood this topic, and I'll be seeing you in the details of the asset editor in the next topic. I'll catch you then. Take care.